Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. It is a pleasure to be back with you. A little bit more of an update. All testing has been done. And about the only thing that the doctors have concluded about me is that I have, quote, significantly less blood flow on my right-hand side of my temple here in my head than I do the left. They don't know why. What I do know is my wife did some research. Look, one of my very favorite snacks, I absolutely love it, is smoked cheese. And there's a fella here locally who produces his own smoked cheese, and he really infuses it with lots of smoke. Makes it wonderful. So my wife's doing some research, and she stumbled onto some of the side effects of that. And guess what? It matched an awful lot. So I completely discontinued, completely discontinued eating my snack of the heavily smoked cheese. And for the last 4 days now, I have felt better than I have felt in literally months. This is a good thing. Giving up my smoked cheese, I don't know if that's the totality of everything going on, mind you. But if that's all it turns out to be, to get to feeling better, then that's a very small sacrifice to make. Like I say, for the last 4 days, I woke up feeling, almost myself. And the reason I say almost is because they've got me on this prednisone that, no, I don't like that stuff. It's just not good stuff. But that may be contributing to the fact that I do feel better. I don't have, the pain and what have you. I just don't know. But something's going on. Thank the good Lord. I do feel better. So there's a weekly health report for Don K. Preston. Now then, as we are drawing our study of the Olivet Discourse to a close, I have been focusing on sharing with you how Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is built upon, drawn from, based on Joel chapter 2 and 3, Isaiah 2 through 4. Now, when you get right down to it, I don't know of very many people that deny this. By the way, something else that needs to be made a point of. Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following is, by virtual scholarly consent, a direct echo of Daniel chapter 7, 13 and 14, of the coming of the Son of Man with his angels to sit on the throne of his glory. Well, if that's the case, and it almost certainly is, do you know what that demands? That absolutely demands that Matthew chapter 25, 31 and following was fulfilled in the first century. Now, there is diversity of opinion as to when Daniel chapter 7, 13 and 14 was supposed to be fulfilled. Many people believe that Daniel 7, 13 and 14 applied to the ascension of Christ in Acts chapter 1. Well, I used to take that position. I really did. The problem with that is Daniel chapter 7 is a judgment scene, because you've got verses 1 through 12 about the coming of the four kingdoms. And in the days of the fourth kingdom, you have the rising of the little horn, who would speak great things against the saints. He would persecute the saints. He would wear them out. But the thrones were set, and judgment was set. And that's when the Son of Man came and was given the thrones, or given the kingdom. Folks, that's a judgment context. It is not Acts chapter 1. Now, here's what that means. And by the way, in the interpretation of the vision, the interpretation of the vision of Daniel 7, 1 to 14, the interpretation which begins in verse 15, the angel told Daniel that what the vision meant, what it referred to, was the coming of the Ancient of Days in judgment of the little horn. Somebody says, well, it says the coming of the Ancient of Days. Well, yeah, but there are ancient Greek Greek translations of the Septuagint that says the Son of Man came as the Ancient of Days. Ooh. And the judgment was set. Now, since Daniel 7:15 and following is the interpretation of the vision of Daniel 7:1-12, and since the interpretation of the vision posits the judgment at the coming of the Lord, that means that Daniel 7:13 and 14 is a judgment scene. But secondarily, since it's in the days of the Roman Empire, i.e. the fourth kingdom, what does that mean? It means that no matter what else we might think of Daniel chapter 7, it's in the days of the Roman Empire. And since Matthew chapter 25:31 and following is a virtual quote, and look, all you got to do is look at the scholarly literature. All you have to do is look at the commentators. And you will see that Daniel chapter 7 is being cited directly in Matthew chapter 25:31 and following. Okay, Matthew chapter 25:31 and following was a prediction of the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 7:13 and 14. Well, guess what? If you're going to make Daniel 7:13 and 14 a prediction of the ascension of Christ, then since Jesus in Matthew chapter 25:31 and following was applying Daniel chapter 7 to his coming in the judgment of the nations, then of logical, textual, contextual considerations and logical coercion, that means that the coming of the Son of Man with the angels, the gathering of all nations before him, and the judgment of all men took place at the ascension. Do you see the trouble people get into when they try to avoid just the natural conflation of the text? Folks, this is absolutely incredible. Let me repeat this, okay? This is one of those things that you've absolutely got to catch the power of. Remember now, the great majority of scholars agree Matthew 25:31 and following is a direct allusion to, echo of, citation, if you please, of Daniel 7:13 and 14, the coming of the Son of Man on the clouds of heaven with the angels in judgment. But what do? They say, oh, well, Daniel 7:13 and 14, that's the ascension. Oh, but wait, Matthew 25:31 and following is not the ascension. It's supposedly the end of time, the end of the Christian age. Well, folks, I'm sorry. If on the one hand you claim that Daniel 7:13 and 14 is the ascension, and then you turn right around and say that Jesus was predicting the fulfillment of Daniel 7 in Matthew chapter 25:31 following, then Jesus wasn't talking about the ascension in Matthew chapter 25:31 and following. Do you catch that? Since Jesus in Matthew 25:31 and following was applying Daniel chapter 7:31 and following to Christ's coming, okay, at the gathering of the nations with his angels to sit on the throne of his glory to judge all men. Then to reiterate, you cannot apply Daniel 7 to the ascension, or else you have to apply Matthew chapter 25:31 and following to the ascension, which means that you are saying that instead of Christ leaving, departing, you have him coming with the angels to sit on his throne, to gather all nations in judgment, and to judge every man according to his works, which would demand, by the way, that at that time he was vindicating the martyrs. Lord, when did we see you in prison and we came and visited you? Oh, well, when you did that unto the least of these my servants, you did it unto me. When were Christ's followers imprisoned prior to the ascension so that Christ could gather everybody together and say to the righteous, you visited my suffering saints in prison, so I'm rewarding you for that? I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. Now, what we have to see is that Daniel chapter 7 is itself a prophecy of the vindication of the martyrs. That's right. Just like Joel 2 and 3, just like Isaiah 2 through 4, Daniel chapter 7 has the little horn arising, speaking great blasphemous things against the God of heaven, persecuting the saints, wearing them out until the coming of the Lord to destroy the little horn. Which brings us back to the point, doesn't it? If the coming of the Lord in Daniel 7 is in the days of Rome, which it was, and if that coming of the Lord is to destroy the little horn, and that coming of the Lord was Christ's ascension, then guess what? The little horn appeared before the ascension. Oh, really? Who was that little horn persecuting the saints prior to Christ's ascension? You see the problem? So like I said, when we look at these texts analytically, when we conflate them properly, when we honor the New Testament application of the Old Testament prophecies, there is simply no way in this world that you can make Daniel chapter 7 apply to the ascension. It's a prophecy of the vindication of the martyrs. But the vindication of the martyrs was not to take place at the ascension. It was to take place in the judgment of Jerusalem in AD 70, according to Jesus in Matthew chapter 23. Well, I tell you what, I didn't originally intend to spend that much time on Daniel 7 and Matthew chapter 25, but you know what? This is so critical. And this is one of those conflations that really honestly is so easy, it's so simple, it's so undeniable, and it makes you wonder, where did anybody get the idea that Acts chapter 1 is the fulfillment of Daniel chapter 7? There's just too many things against it from the text of Daniel 7. And once again, when we conflate Daniel 7 with Matthew 25, 31 and following, and the fact that Daniel 7 was to be fulfilled in the days of the Roman Empire, in the avenging of the blood of the martyrs, and we know that Jesus said all the blood of all the righteous would be shed, or that had been shed, all the way back to Abel, would be vindicated in that generation, which was the generation of the Fourth Empire. It seems inescapable to me, ladies and gentlemen, that Matthew 25, 31 and following was fulfilled in the judgment of Old Covenant Israel, in the vindication of the martyrs in AD 70. I'm out of time for today. And don't forget, hey, look, we're almost out of time. Go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com. Beautiful banner right up at the very top, advertising 2 books. Revelation Realized by my friend Sam Dawson. And it is a study of martyr vindication from Genesis to Revelation. Fantastic book. In addition, my book, We Shall Meet Him in the Air, The Wedding of the King of Kings, which likewise has an extended discussion of the vindication of the martyrs. Do yourself a favor. Order the August special. Save yourself, in the final analysis, you'll save yourself almost $15. So take advantage of it while you still can before the offer runs out. It's only good through August 2022, U.S. orders only. Now look, if you live out of the U.S., you'd like to have those 2 books, I cannot offer Sam's book in PDF form because I don't possess it in that form. But if you'd like my book, We Shall Meet Him in the Air, The Wedding of the King of Kings, at a greatly reduced price, contact me, and upon some basic agreements between you and me, then I'll sell you a PDF at very greatly reduced price. Okay, I'm out of time. I'll see you on the flip side.